I became aware of, just how unhealthy my habits had become. The reality is that 95% of what we do, it's conditioned. It's where we came from. It's what we got used to, right? I would feel stress, I'd eat. I'd be happy, I'd eat. I'd be bored, I'd eat. And, just being unaware of those things became a real hindrance. I was getting out of life what I was putting into life, right? No thought, just reaction. I think the best way is for me to just sort of, dive in and to tell my story. It's kind of like a weight loss journey, and the lessons that I learned along the way through this weight loss journey, and how I kind of overcame a lifetime of, well, for lack of a better word, being fat. The nagging thing was I just couldn't get control of my weight. And no matter what I did, it seemed that I could lose weight. And frankly, I've lost hundreds and hundreds of pounds in my life. I think, in September of 1999, I was 345 pounds, right? So I'm 5'6". I tell people 5'7", but that's not entirely true. I'm probably 5'6.5". And, so you can imagine somebody who's 345 pounds and 5'6". I was obviously unhealthy. And I didn't really even understand that I was unhealthy or why I was unhealthy because of the habits that I had sort of had over that time. I applied for mortgage insurance, and I was declined for mortgage insurance based on my health. And so in consultation with my doctor, I found out that I was diabetic, and I had hypertension. I found out that my triglycerides were 10 times normal. And when I found out what all that was, I sought the help of a professional. I went to a professional trainer, and which was difficult to begin with, walking into a gym, being 345 pounds, to sort of sit down and to meet with a trainer for the first time. And I'm like, how do we do this? Because I've always found that I'm very determined. I stay with things. I'm not afraid of hard work. That's been my personality. As long as I was working out for 3 hours a day and, cutting calories, then everything was fine. But as soon as the stress started to pile back on, and, work stress or home life stress, or, the stress of being divorced, or going through a divorce, those types of things, then I found that my weight would balloon. So I'd go back to 280, 290. And at that time, I used to tell myself, well, that's okay, because at least I'm not 345, right? I mean, I'm still unhealthy. I still don't feel good in my own skin. I remember, playing around to golf with some sort of high-level executives from Ford Motor Company, and I was so stressed for the week before because I knew that I had to tuck my shirt in because that's just what it meant. And I had to go to I was shopping in a big and tall store, those types of things, and so it never brought me to be the best person that I was. I played life small because I had this thing that I couldn't overcome. And, so I would go back on a diet, but it was never anything that was sustainable. And so for me to keep on this kind of wheel, sort of like the hamster wheel of, and this cycle of diet and then gain weight, lose weight, gain weight, lose weight, that became as unhealthy as anything else. And it still didn't allow me to be the person that I thought I was capable of being. And so, that sort of stayed the same way, but I couldn't really get my head around it. I could never really figure out, like, what was going on with me? Why was this happening? Why was this, a continuation? Now when I look back with the work that I've done through coaching, through my, this sort of transformation and this self-image journey that I've been on, I understand exactly what it was, right? I had developed bad habits. I had developed unhealthy habits. I had developed habits that weren't serving me. I had tried therapy. I had been on anti-anxiety medication. I had been on, other forms of medication. But I didn't feel like that was serving me anymore. And so I reached out to a fella, his name was David Graham, who's a master certified coach. And so I arranged a session with David and wanted to kind of, explore what coaching was, because I had some experience with coaching in the past. I found myself that I was stuck, right? I was stuck. I was stuck in a place, and I didn't know how to move forward. I knew I needed to move forward. I knew I wanted to move forward, but I just didn't know how to move forward. As I was thinking about it, I thought, I don't know that I need a coach. I think I need to be a coach. And And then I stumbled onto IPEC. So IPEC is a coaching company out of New Jersey in the United States. It's the Institute of Professional Excellence in Coaching. And they had a program which would teach you how to be a coach, and you could become certified as a professional coach. And I thought, that's kind of what I need, because I have experience mentoring people. I have experience training people. I have experience advising people. I had been a trusted advisor in a lot of people's businesses over the course of my career. I used to run a big Ford dealership. I also had my own mortgage brokerage. I had agents who, I had, some of those agents I had worked with, to achieve incredible results for them, right? Which always gave me an enormous amount of pride. It was, for me, it was never about how much money we made. Watching somebody do something they didn't think was possible for themselves was kind of cool. All I knew is that I had a history, I had a past of being able to help people, being able to advise people. And I had kind of a habit of putting people's needs ahead of my own, right? My success was only as good as the success of the people around me, which had been my philosophy for forever, for as long as I've been managing people and working with people. It's never been about what I've been able to do. It's always been about what they've been able to do. One of my mottos was always, every salesperson I worked with, every sales agent I worked with, every mortgage agent I worked with, every broker I worked with, it was always like, what do you need from me to have, so you have the best year of your life, right? It was always, that was a recurring theme. We want to have the best year of your life. And whatever that looks like for you, it doesn't matter to me. It matters to you. When I worked with David, that's what I learned. I learned coaching is a partnership between the client and the coach. And the idea is to move the action forward, right? It's to get you unstuck, to get you to a place where you feel like you can move forward. When I enrolled in IPEC and started doing some of the coursework at IPEC, man, it was so illuminating for me, and it really started the transformation. And I always knew that I wasn't being the best version of myself. And that manifested itself in being heavier than I should have been, being unhealthy, having unhealthy habits. But I never really knew the how, right? Because I never knew the who. I never knew myself. And what my relationship with IPEC was able to do was it was really able to propel me forward and to examine a lot of those questions, right? Who am I really? Like, who in my core? Who am I? What kind of a person am? Like, what kind of a person I am? And it was through getting really super honest with myself, and not in a judgmental way, right? It wasn't like judging myself and judging me from, it was from a place of a holistic sense of just incompleteness, right? I just wasn't being as good as I could possibly be. I started to sort of, look at myself not for who I was in the past, but who I could be in the future. And I started to really recreate this version of myself. And it was only through, coaching and peer coaching and the coaching that was available to me throughout my training that I understood exactly why I was that person. I was that fat guy who, in spite of being fat, I was still able to be successful. And I learned that I didn't have to be that person, right? That was a person, that was it was sort of a moniker that somebody had put on me early on in life that stuck. I had attached my self-image to a fat guy. And so when I was able to break and break that sort of tether to that person, I was able to reshape who I was as a man who was fit, who was capable of hiking and climbing mountains. And I started to build on that persona. I started to ask myself, well, what would that person do? And then I would coach on those things. Those were the things that I would work on with my peer coach. And the next thing you know, I started to transform. Transform mentally, transform physically, transform emotionally. I started to move the action forward. Everything was moving forward. And, so within 6 months, I think I probably lost 70 pounds or so. I got down to a weight that I hadn't been since I was 12 years old, literally, hadn't been since I was 12. I fit into clothes that I hadn't fit into since I was 12. And that sort of transformational effect of that, this was all done through coaching. This was all done through understanding myself, having people ask me really valuable questions, and having the opportunity to investigate myself, without judgment. I was able to understand the power of awareness, right? And the power of how you show up consciously. And when you start to put those things together and you start to develop a language around those things, and you develop, you look back at some of the things that happen in your life, and you're able to better understand how those things were happening and why those things were happening, because you're able to look at it not like it was good or bad, but because it was part of your journey. Everybody's journey is different, right? Everybody's journey, it belongs to them. And really, what it kind of starts with is it starts with examining where they're at, and just being honest with where you are, not from a judgmental perspective, right? Not whether it's good or bad, just that it is. Just have to accept where you've come from, right? You have to accept your journey. And if you look at that like it's good or bad, then you start thinking, then you start judging yourself, right? Oh, I could have done better. Of course we could have done better. Of course we would have done it differently, right? But we were in the moment. So if you look back at some of the stuff that you did as, a human doing, right? And then you start to be critical about the things that you did. But if you look at yourself as a human being, well, really what you were is you were becoming the person that you needed to become. The only question that you can ask is do you like yourself, right? And if you do, then it's great. Then you have to accept everything that happens from the beginning of time till now, because that's what shaped you, right? It was your experiences that shaped you. That's how you got here. So somebody who wants to change their mentality, really it's figuring out where you are and then how you got here. How does somebody change their mentality? Is first of all, they want to, right? They have to know that they want to. They have to know that they got here, and there's a reason that they got here, and there's a way that they got here. And then once they understand that, then we start thinking about, well, what do you want? What vision do you have of yourself for the future, right? What do you want your future to look like? What do you want the next, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years to look like? And then we make action plans to implement all of those things so that you can move towards that ideal life that you have. Every coach will have their own niche, and for me, my niche happens to be I coach in leadership, and why leadership is because we're all leaders, right? We all lead ourselves. We all lead our families, or we play a role in our families. Really, all you have the power over, the only thing you have dominion over is yourself and what you can do in the moment. And so, if you choose to be a leader in the moment, then you're a leader, right? And then you could benefit from leadership. Another one of my specialties is well-being, because of, I have a little bit of experience with weight loss, and I have a little bit of experience with getting the mental side and like the mind and the body, getting that into alignment. If you feel like you're out of alignment, if you feel like, you just need somebody to talk to, somebody to work with, somebody to partner with, to kind of move your life forward, that's really, that's what a coach's role is. Becoming a coach and becoming a life coach or a high performance coach or a leadership coach, I still struggle a little bit with imposter syndrome. I feel like, well, how can I be an expert on this, or how can I work with somebody? But the fact is I can do that because I just show up. I show up for people. I create a very safe space for them to talk to me. I ask them, the best questions I can ask them so that they can move their situation forward. While you're participating in life, while you're performing, you don't see everything that's going on around you. And you only see what you focus on, and you see what you know, or you know what you see. And sometimes you need to sort of back the camera out a little bit and have a little more perspective. And that's really what a coach does, is we tend to back the camera up, and we have a little bit more perspective, or different perspective, and we're able to sort of reframe things that that you think are necessarily good or bad. We reframe them in ways that we try to move the action forward, move your life forward, so you can get out of a rut, get out of a difficult situation, handle stress better. If I never make money at this, for the transformation that I had for myself, you can't really put a dollar figure on that, right? For me, selfishly, I got out so much more than I could ever, give somebody else. And, then I started to think, well, if I could help people transform and feel the way that I transformed and the way I feel, wouldn't that be cool, right? If I could help somebody else on their journey, the way that IPEC and coaching in general have sort of helped me on my journey, right? So, like, I've managed to cure a chronic disease. I am no longer diabetic. I am no longer hypertensive. I don't take anxiety medications anymore. I sleep well at night. I don't eat out of reflex anymore. I've managed to keep 70 pounds off for 6 months, and I don't see that ever changing again. I have reached heights for myself, and just from a personal development perspective, that I never thought it would be possible. If I can share some of that stuff, some of those accomplishments, some of those things with other people to help them overcome some of the stumbling blocks that they have in their lives, that's really what it's about, right? It's not about, oh, I want to have so many clients and I want to have this, I want to have that. This is about what it's done for me. And if I could make somebody else feel the way that I feel about myself, the transformation. I remember having a conversation with my wife about, I don't know, man, it was maybe 16, 18 months ago. And my wife is the love of my life, by the way. But I remember having a conversation. We were kind of in a bit of a rut, right? We were in a bit of a lull in our relationship. And I said, like, how would you characterize that relationship? And she looked at me, straight-faced, and she said, we're roommates. And I'm like, oh, we're roommates. And that really struck me, right? That really it kind of struck me. And here it is, 18 months later. I'm 75 pounds lighter. I have a new outlook on life. I have a new way of showing up for the world. I have a new way of showing up for my business partner, for the people who are on my team, for the business that she does such a masterful job running. We're not roommates anymore, right? We're not roommates anymore. And so if I could help somebody else get to that spot, then I think that's a pretty cool thing.